I stood in the bridal suite, 3 hours before my wedding, staring at what used to be my dream dress. Someone had taken scissors and shredded it. The lace sleeves hung in ribbons. The bodice was sliced through. The train looked like confetti. My hands trembled as I touched the destroyed silk, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate, cruel destruction. Months of planning, thousands of dollars, my perfect dress gone. I felt my chest tighten, panic rising in my throat. In 3 hours, I was supposed to walk down the aisle. How could this be happening? Then I saw the note on the table. Cream-colored cardstock, elegant handwriting I recognized immediately. You're not good enough for my son. You never were. It was signed with Patricia's distinctive flourish. My future mother-in-law had destroyed my wedding dress. She'd snuck into my bridal suite while I was gone and systematically ruined the most important garment of my life. The realization hit me like ice water. Patricia wanted me to cancel, to fall apart, to prove I wasn't strong enough for her precious son. But standing there, holding that cruel note, I made a decision. I wasn't giving her that satisfaction. My relationship with Patricia had been toxic from day one. When Marcus first introduced us 2 years ago, she looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain. At that first dinner, she accidentally spilled red wine on my white blouse. At Christmas, everyone got thoughtful gifts except me. I received a $5 gift card to a discount store. She criticized everything. My job as a teacher wasn't ambitious enough. My apartment was too small. My family wasn't the right background. Marcus always defended me, but Patricia was strategic. She'd wait until he left the room, then lean close and whisper, "He'll realize his mistake eventually." When Marcus proposed, I'd hoped things would improve. They didn't. At our engagement party, Patricia toasted, "To my son's happiness, whatever form that takes." The room went silent. I wanted to disappear. She questioned every wedding decision. The venue wasn't prestigious enough. My dress choice was interesting. She suggested postponing until you're really ready. Each comment was designed to make me feel inadequate, to plant seeds of doubt. But I'd endured it all because I loved Marcus, because he stood by me, because I believed once we were married, Patricia would have to accept reality. Now, staring at my destroyed dress, I realized she'd never planned to accept anything. I picked up my phone with shaking hands. My first instinct was to call Marcus, but I stopped myself. If I told him what his mother had done 3 hours before our wedding, chaos would erupt. He'd confront her. She'd deny it. There'd be a massive fight. The wedding would be delayed or canceled. That's exactly what Patricia wanted. She wanted to ruin this day, to prove I wasn't strong enough. So I made a different call. "Mrs. Chun? It's Amanda. I need your help, and I need you not to ask questions right now." Mrs. Chun was Marcus's aunt, Patricia's sister-in-law. They lived in the same neighborhood, and Mrs. Chun had never liked Patricia. She told me privately that she was thrilled Marcus had found someone real. "What's going on?" Mrs. Chun asked, concerned in her voice. "I need you to go to Patricia's house. You still have that spare key from when you watered her plants, right? I need you to get something from her closet. There's a garment bag in the back, her wedding dress from 30 years ago. Bring it to me. Right now." There was a long pause. Then Mrs. Chun laughed, really laughed. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up and looked at the destroyed dress again. Patricia's most prized possession was about to become mine. While waiting for Mrs. Chun, I thought about a conversation Marcus and I had 6 months ago. We'd been looking through old family photos, and he'd pulled out a picture of his parents' wedding. Patricia looked radiant in a vintage 1990s gown with intricate beading and a cathedral train. "Mom keeps that dress in her closet," Marcus had said. "She takes it out sometimes and just looks at it. Says it's the most important thing she owns, more important than any jewelry. She's told me 100 times it represents the happiest day of her life. The happiest day of her life. The most important thing she owned. She'd taken my most important possession and destroyed it. She tried to steal the happiness of my wedding day. So I was going to take hers. Not destroy it. That would make me just like her. But I was going to wear it. I was going to walk down that aisle in Patricia's most prized possession to marry her son. And she was going to have to watch. The plan crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. This wasn't about revenge. It was about refusing to be broken. It was about showing Patricia that her cruelty had limits, that I was stronger than she calculated. I heard a car pull up outside and move to the window. Mrs. Chun was here. Mrs. Chun burst through the door, carrying a large vintage garment bag, breathing heavily. "I got it," she gasped. Then she saw the destroyed dress on the floor, the scissors marks, the cruel note. Her face shifted from confusion to shock to absolute fury. "That vindictive woman," Mrs. Chun hissed. "You're going to wear Patricia's dress." "I'm going to wear Patricia's dress," I confirmed. We unzipped the bag together. The dress was beautiful. Ivory silk with pearl beading across the bodice, long lace sleeves, a fitted waist that flared into a full skirt. It smelled faintly of lavender and decades of storage, but it was in perfect condition. "Try it on," Mrs. Chun urged. "We have 2 hours." I stepped into the dress, and Mrs. Chun zipped it up. We both turned to the mirror. It fit. Not perfectly. I was taller than Patricia had been, so the hem was slightly shorter, but it fit. The bodice hugged my waist. The sleeves were elegant. The train pulled behind me beautifully. I looked like a bride. A strong, determined, beautiful bride. Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. "Patricia is going to lose her mind." "Good," I said quietly. "That's exactly what I want." For the first time since discovering the destruction, I felt powerful instead of victimized. Mrs. Chen immediately started strategizing. "Patricia is going to accuse you of stealing. We need witnesses and evidence." She was right. I'd been running on adrenaline, but we needed to protect ourselves. Mrs. Chun texted her husband Robert, who was already at the venue, explaining what Patricia had done and that I was wearing her dress out of necessity. She also texted my maid of honor Jenna, who needed to know before arriving. My phone exploded with Jenna's call. "Are you serious? Patricia destroyed your dress with scissors." "Dead serious," I said. "I have the dress here. It's completely ruined." "That psychopath," Jenna hissed. "We're finishing hair right now and coming straight to you. You wear that woman's dress and walk down that aisle like a queen." Mrs. Chin held up her phone. "We need documentation. Photos of your destroyed dress, the note, timestamps on everything. If Patricia tries to twist the story later, we need proof." We spent 5 minutes photographing every angle of the destruction. The scissors marks, the torn lace, the cruel note in Patricia's handwriting. Mrs. Chun sent copies to herself and Robert. Multiple people now had evidence. As I hit send, reality sank in. In less than 2 hours, I'd walked down the aisle in my mother-in-law's wedding dress. The mother-in-law is sitting in that venue right now, thinking she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. 3 sharp knocks on the door made me jump. "It's me," Marcus's voice came through. "I know I'm not supposed to see you, but something feels off. Are you okay?" My heart raced. Mrs. Chun mouthed, "Tell him." "Don't open the door," I called out. Bad luck. "But yes, we need to talk." I heard him lean against the door. "Talk to me. What's wrong?" This was it. I had to tell him without causing him to cancel the wedding or confront his mother before the ceremony. "Your mother came to the bridal suite this morning while I was gone. She destroyed my wedding dress, Marcus. Cut it to pieces with scissors. Left a note saying, 'I'm not good enough for you.'" Silence. Then I heard what sounded like his fist hitting the wall. "I'm going to kill her. I'm going to go down there right now." "No," I said firmly. "You're not. She failed, Marcus. I'm still getting married today. To you. In 2 hours." "How?" "You don't have a dress." "I have a dress. Your Aunt Chin helped me. It's beautiful. It fits, and I'm walking down that aisle. But I need you to trust me and not confront your mother until after the ceremony." "Can you do that?" Long silence. "What are you planning?" "Something your mother will never forget. But it's not cruel. Just very firm." Another pause. "I love you. And after today, my mother and I are having a serious conversation." Jenna and my bridesmaids arrived like a whirlwind. They gathered around the destroyed dress, faces shifting from disbelief to fury. "I'm going to fight an old lady," Sarah said flatly. "There's a first time for everything." "No fighting," I said. "We're taking a different approach." I gestured to Patricia's vintage dress. Jenna's eyes went wide. "Is that Patricia's wedding dress?" "Her most prized possession. And our bride is going to look stunning in it," Mrs. Chen confirmed. Understanding dawned on their faces, followed by wicked delight. This is brilliant, Jenna breathed. This is perfect. For the next 45 minutes, my bridesmaids worked like professionals. Jenna handled makeup, soft, romantic, classic. Sarah fixed my hair into an elegant updo with pearl pins. Kate, a former fashion design major, made minor adjustments with safety pins to ensure the perfect fit. The hem is shorter, Kate observed, but it makes you look taller. More modern. It works. As they worked, my anger transformed into calm determination. Patricia had wanted to break me. Instead, she'd show me how strong I actually was. 15 minutes, Jenna announced. Time for the final reveal. I stood, smoothed the vintage silk, and turned to the mirror. The woman looking back was radiant. The ivory silk complemented my skin perfectly. The pearl beading caught the light. I looked beautiful. Let's go get married, I said. My father was waiting in the corridor looking nervous. When he saw me, his eyes went wide. Sweetheart, that's not the dress we bought. I took his hand. There was an incident this morning. This is Patricia's dress. I'll explain later, but right now, I need you to walk me down that aisle like nothing is wrong. My father had never liked Patricia. Understanding dawned on his face, followed by protective anger, then pride. Then let's show her exactly what kind of woman my daughter is. The organ music swelled. Through the opening doors, I could see the ceremony hall. 200 guests turning in their seats. Flowers everywhere. Marcus at the altar looking anxious. And there, front row, Patricia with a small, satisfied smile. She thought she'd won. Thought I was somewhere crying, that the wedding would be delayed or canceled. Ready, sweetheart, my father whispered. I adjusted my bouquet and lifted my chin. Ready. We stepped into the doorway, and every head turned. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People leaned toward each other, murmuring. But mostly they stared, because the dress was stunning. Marcus's expression shifted from confusion to recognition to shock to a huge, proud smile. And then I saw Patricia's face. Her smug smile froze. Her eyes widened. Her hand flew to her mouth. She half stood, staring at me, at her dress, with absolute horror. I walked down that aisle with my head held high. Marcus took my hands at the altar, eyes dancing with barely suppressed amusement. You're wearing my mom's dress, he whispered. She destroyed mine 3 hours ago. Cut it to pieces. His hands tightened on mine. I felt him start to turn toward his mother. Don't. Not now. Later. Right now we're getting married. The officiant began the ceremony. I could feel Patricia's eyes burning into my back. Whispers rippled through the crowd as people recognized the vintage dress, putting pieces together. Uncle Robert sat with arms crossed, staring at Patricia with an expression that could cut glass. He knew exactly what had happened. The officiant reached the vows. Marcus, do you take this woman? Marcus didn't hesitate. I do. His voice was strong, clear, certain. Amanda, do you take this man? I looked at Marcus, the man who defended me, who'd been horrified by what his mother had done. The man I loved despite his complicated family. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Marcus pulled me close and kissed me. The church erupted in applause. As we walked back down the aisle as husband and wife, I looked directly at Patricia. She was crying, face pale, hands clutched in her lap. She was crying because everyone now knew what she'd done. And I'd won anyway. The receiving line was tradition in Marcus's family. We stood at the entrance, greeting every guest as they exited. My college friends hugged me with knowing looks. Word was spreading fast about what had happened. Then came Mrs. Chun and Uncle Robert. Mrs. Chun hugged me, so hard my ribs ached. You were perfect, she whispered. Uncle Robert leaned close to Marcus. Your mother crossed a serious line today. We'll talk later. More guests filtered through, offering support. Many had their own Patricia stories, sabotaged relationships, cruel comments, years of manipulation. Then the crowd parted, and Patricia approached. She composed herself since the ceremony, tears replaced by icy politeness. But her hands shook, and her eyes were filled with barely controlled rage. Marcus, she said, voice tight. Congratulations. Mom. His voice was flat, cold. Patricia turned to me, eyes scanning the dress, her dress. That's a lovely dress. Very familiar. I smiled calmly. Thank you, Patricia. I needed something to wear on very short notice. Your sister-in-law was kind enough to help me find the perfect solution. The implication hung in the air. I knew what she'd done. She knew I knew. And I'd turned her sabotage into my victory. We need to talk, Patricia hissed. Privately. Now. No, Marcus said firmly. Not now. You'll leave the wedding, Mom, or you'll stay and be civil. Those are your options. Uncle Robert appeared, guiding Patricia away. She went, but not before looking back at me, defeated, furious, broken. The reception was at a beautiful venue, exposed brick walls, string lights, elegant but warm. As Marcus and I entered to applause, I could feel the whispers intensifying. People knew something had happened. During our first dance, Marcus whispered, people are asking questions. What do you want me to tell them? The truth. Your mother destroyed my wedding dress this morning. I wore hers instead. Anyone who asks deserves to know what she did. By the time dinner was served, the story had spread to every table. Jenna had taken it upon herself to inform key people who informed others. It spread like wildfire. Marcus's relatives, who tolerated Patricia's behavior for years, looked vindicated. My family looked furious but proud. And Patricia's seat at the head table remained conspicuously empty. Then, just as salads were being served, the doors opened. Patricia walked in, changed into a black dress instead of her previous pastel. She changed clothes, wearing black like she was attending a funeral instead of her son's wedding. The entire reception went quiet. 200 people watched as Patricia walked stiffly to her seat. She was making a statement. The black dress was her way of telling everyone she was the victim. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I stood up, champagne glass in hand, and tapped it gently with a fork. Every face turned toward me. This was my moment. Can I have everyone's attention for just a moment? Every face in the room turned toward me. Marcus looked surprised. We hadn't planned for me to give a speech. Patricia's face went pale. First, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Marcus and I are so grateful to celebrate with all of you. Polite applause rippled through the crowd. I know some of you have noticed that this isn't the dress I originally planned to wear. And I think you deserve to know why. Patricia started to stand, but Uncle Robert put a firm hand on her shoulder. She sank back down. This morning, someone entered my bridal suite while I was away and destroyed my wedding dress. Cut it to pieces with scissors. Left a note telling me I wasn't good enough. Collective gasps filled the room. Guests turned to look at each other, hands over mouths. It was an act meant to hurt me, to ruin this day, to make me feel small and unworthy. But here's what that person didn't understand. You can destroy a dress, but you can't destroy a marriage. You can try to tear down someone's happiness, but you can't break someone who knows their worth. Marcus reached up and squeezed my hand. So when I found myself without a dress 3 hours before my wedding, I had a choice. I could cancel. I could fall apart. Or I could find another way. I gestured to the vintage dress I was wearing. This dress belonged to someone who tried to stop this wedding. And by wearing it, I'm making a statement. You don't get to control my happiness. You don't get to decide my worth. And you definitely don't get to ruin the day I marry the man I love. The reception erupted in applause. People stood up, some wiping tears. My bridesmaids were crying. Even some of Marcus's relatives who'd been quiet Patricia supporters were applauding. I looked directly at Patricia. She was crying again, but this time there was no anger in her face. Only shame. Only the realization that everyone in this room now knew what she'd done. So thank you to everyone who helped me today. To my bridesmaids who rallied around me. To Marcus's Aunt Chun who went above and beyond. To my husband, who stood by me without hesitation. Marcus stood, wrapping his arm around my waist. And to the person who tried to ruin this day, thank you for showing me exactly how strong I am. And for giving me a story I'll be telling for the rest of my life. Laughter mixed with applause and cheering. I raised my champagne glass. To marriage. To love. And to never letting anyone make you feel less than you are. Cheers. Cheers, echoed through the room. As I sat down, Marcus kissed me, and the room cheered again. When I looked toward Patricia's seat, it was empty. She'd left for good. The rest of the reception was perfect. Without Patricia's presence, the celebration felt lighter, more genuine. People kept approaching me throughout the night, offering support and sharing their own Patricia stories. Marcus's cousin told me about the time Patricia accidentally donated her prom dress to charity the day before prom. An old family friend mentioned how Patricia had tried to talk Marcus's dad out of their marriage 30 years ago. "She's always been like this," one aunt said, squeezing my hand. "But no one's ever stood up to her the way you did today. You're exactly what this family needs." Around 10 o'clock, as we swayed to a slow song, Marcus's phone buzzed. "It's my dad. He's asking if we can talk tomorrow. Says Mom is very upset, and there needs to be a family conversation." I rested my head on his shoulder. "What do you want to do?" "I want to talk to them. Both of them. Together. I want my mother to hear from me exactly how unacceptable her behavior was. And I want my dad to stop making excuses for her. I'll be there with you. We're a team now." "We're a team," he agreed. As the night wound down, Jenna pulled me aside. "You know this isn't over, right? Patricia is going to try to spin this somehow." "I know, but I have the photos. I have witnesses. I have Marcus. She can try, but the truth is the truth." We woke up the next morning in our hotel suite, still exhausted but happy. Marcus was already on the balcony with coffee, his phone in hand, expression serious. 17 missed calls from my dad, 12 from my mom, about 30 text messages from various relatives. I poured coffee and joined him. "What are they saying?" "My dad wants us to come over this afternoon for a calm, rational discussion. My mom is saying you stole her dress, that you humiliated her, that I need to control my wife and make you apologize." "Control your wife," I repeated, voice dangerously quiet. "I'm not responding to that one. But we do need to talk to them. Not because Mom deserves an explanation, but because boundaries need to be set. In stone. What do you want to say to them?" Marcus took my hand. "I want to tell my mother that what she did was unforgivable. That she doesn't get to sabotage my marriage and play the victim. And I want to tell my dad that his decades of making excuses for her ends now. That's not going to be an easy conversation. No, but it's necessary. My whole life, people have tiptoed around my mother's behavior. Someone needs to finally call it what it is." At 2 o'clock, we pulled up to his parents' house. Richard opened the door looking exhausted. Dark circles, tie loosened, shoulders slumped. "Thank you for coming. Your mother is in the living room." Patricia sat rigidly on the white sofa, hands folded. She'd been crying, but her expression wasn't apologetic. It was defiant. We sat across from Marcus's parents, the coffee table between us feeling like a barrier. Richard cleared his throat. "I think we need to discuss what happened yesterday." "What happened?" Marcus said, voice controlled but hard. "Is that Mom destroyed Amanda's wedding dress hours before our ceremony and left a note telling her she wasn't good enough for me." "I was protecting you," Patricia said immediately. "You're making a mistake, Marcus." Marcus's hand slammed on the coffee table. "Stop. Stop right there. You don't get to justify what you did. You don't get to call sabotaging my wedding protection." Richard put a hand on Patricia's arm. "Patricia, you need to apologize. What you did was wrong." Patricia jerked her arm away. "I won't apologize for trying to save my son from a mistake. She's not right for you, Marcus. She comes from nothing. She has no ambition." I stood slowly, calmly. Patricia stopped mid-sentence. "I'm a teacher," I said quietly. "I have a master's degree. I own my own home. I volunteer every Saturday. I've been financially independent since I was 22. But none of that matters to you, does it, Patricia? Because the real issue isn't my job or my background. The real issue is that I exist. That your son chose me. That he's building a life that doesn't revolve around you." Patricia's face struck, exposed, unable to respond. "You destroyed my wedding dress because you wanted to destroy my happiness," I continued. "You wanted me to feel small and worthless. You wanted to prove I didn't belong in your family. But here's what you actually proved. You proved that you're willing to hurt your own son to maintain control. You proved that your ego is more important than his happiness. And you proved that you're not the elegant woman you pretend to be. You're just cruel." Patricia's face crumbled, tears starting to flow. "How dare you speak to me that way in my own home?" Patricia started. "No." Marcus stepped beside me, taking my hand. "She's right. About all of it. I've spent my whole life watching you manipulate people, Mom. Watching you tear down anyone who didn't meet your impossible standards. Watching Dad make excuses because it was easier than confronting you. Richard looked down, ashamed. But I'm not doing that anymore. What you did yesterday was unforgivable. And unless you can genuinely apologize, not justify, not explain, but actually apologize, you're not going to be part of our lives. Patricia stared at her son like he'd physically struck her. You're choosing her over your own mother. I'm choosing my wife. I'm choosing the person who loves me without conditions. I'm choosing the family I'm building. Patricia dissolved into tears, her perfect composure finally shattering completely. And Richard, for the first time in probably 30 years, didn't rush to comfort her. He just sat there, looking old and tired and sad. After what felt like an eternity, Richard finally spoke. She's done this before. Patricia's sobbing stopped abruptly. Everyone turned to look at Richard. What? Marcus said quietly. Richard looked up, first at his son, then at me. His eyes were wet. Your mother has done this before. Not the dress, but sabotaging relationships. Driving people away. Anyone she thought wasn't good enough or threatened her position in your life. Marcus's face shifted from confusion to dawning realization. Remember Sarah from college? The girl you dated for 2 years? Your mother told Sarah that you were planning to break up with her after graduation. Told her you'd said she was too clingy. None of it was true, but Sarah believed it. She broke up with you to save herself the pain. What? Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. And Jessica from law school. Your mother sent her articles about bankruptcy cases, implied you'd never be financially stable, suggested she could do better. Mom! Marcus turned to Patricia, voice shaking. Is this true? Patricia shrank into the couch, caught, defensive, but unable to deny. I was protecting you. They weren't right for you. None of them were. You mean none of them were controllable enough? None of them would let you run their lives? Richard continued, voice heavy. I've enabled this for 30 years. I've made excuses, smoothed things over. But what happened yesterday, destroying Amanda's wedding dress, that was a line even I can't pretend doesn't exist. Richard stood, moving toward Patricia but not to comfort, to confront. This ends now. Either you get help, real help, therapy, whatever it takes, or I'm done making excuses for you. Patricia gasped. Richard, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I've watched you push away every person our son has ever cared about. I've watched you manipulate and control and hurt people. And I've said nothing because I loved you and thought you'd change. But you won't change unless there are consequences. Richard's hand trembled, but his voice stayed steady. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I let it get this far. That I prioritized keeping peace over protecting the people you hurt. He turned to Marcus and me. You have every right to cut us out of your lives. Both of us. I wouldn't blame you. Marcus took a deep breath. Dad, you're not the one who needs to apologize. But you do need to stop enabling her. I will, Richard said. I promise you I will. The room fell silent, everyone waiting for Patricia to speak. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her perfect posture had collapsed. She looked, for the first time, human. I don't know how to stop, she whispered finally. I don't know how to stop being afraid that I'm going to lose him. That everyone is going to take him away from me. That I'm going to end up alone. Patricia looked up at Marcus, face completely vulnerable. When you were born, you were everything to me. Everything. Your father worked constantly. I had no friends in the city. My own mother was critical of everything I did. You were the only thing that made me feel valuable. Marcus's face softened slightly but remained firm. And as you grew up, I kept thinking someday someone is going to take him away. Someday he's going to choose someone else over me. And I couldn't bear it. So every time you brought someone home, I found reasons they weren't good enough. I convinced myself I was protecting you, but really I was protecting myself. From being replaced. From being forgotten. My face showed hurt, but also began understanding of the psychology behind the cruelty. And yesterday, when I saw your dress hanging there, so beautiful, representing this life you were building without me, I panicked. I thought if I could stop the wedding, if I could prove she wasn't strong enough, you'd realize you still needed me. But all I did was prove that I'm exactly what you said. Cruel. Controlling. Willing to hurt my own son to feel important. Patricia covered her face, shoulders shaking. Marcus moved closer but stayed standing, maintaining the boundary. Mom, I need you to understand something. I will always be your son. But I'm also a husband now. And if you can't accept that, if you can't treat Amanda with respect and kindness, then we can't have a relationship. I know, Patricia whispered. I know. Marcus crouched to his mother's eye level. I love you, Mom. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Not for me and not for my wife. Patricia reached out, touching Marcus's hand tentatively. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She turned to me, eyes red and swollen but sincere. I destroyed your dress. I tried to ruin the happiest day of your life. I've been cruel to you from the moment we met. And I have no excuse. Nothing I say can make it right. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to try to make this right. But I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I stood there, looking at this woman who had caused me so much pain, who had tried to destroy my wedding. And I saw someone who was broken, someone who had let fear and insecurity turn her into someone cruel. I don't forgive you, I said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. What you did was unforgivable. But I'm willing to see if you can change. If you get help, real help, therapy, work on understanding why you do these things. And if you can prove, over time, that you're genuinely trying to be better. Patricia's face showed hope mixed with shame. If you can do that, then maybe we can build something. Not what you had before. You don't get to control our lives, but maybe something healthier. Something real. Marcus stood, taking my hand, presenting a united front. But if you ever try something like this again, we're done. Completely. No second chances. Patricia nodded vigorously. I understand. I'll get help. I promise. I'll do whatever it takes. Richard put his hand on Patricia's shoulder, supportive but also firm. I'll make sure she follows through. And I'll be going to therapy too. I need to understand why I enabled this for so long. We left shortly after, with agreements that Patricia would find a therapist within the week and that we'd have family dinners once a month, supervised, structured, with clear boundaries. As we drove away, Marcus squeezed my hand. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. You did the right thing. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary. Thank you for giving her a chance. You didn't have to. I looked out the window, thoughtful. I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for you. And for us. Because holding on to anger would poison our marriage just as much as her interference would. Marcus brought my hand to his lips and kissed it. We drove home in comfortable silence, both processing everything. The wedding dress incident wasn't over. It would take years to fully heal. But we'd taken the first step. That evening, back in our apartment, I carefully hung Patricia's wedding dress in our closet. Marcus watched from the doorway. Are you going to give it back to her? Eventually, I said, touching the lace sleeves. But not yet. Right now it's evidence. Documentation of what happened. And honestly, I kind of like that she knows I have it. That she has to think about what she did every time she remembers her dress is with me. Marcus smiled slightly. That's fair. 2 days later, we left for our honeymoon in Hawaii. 2 weeks on the beach, away from all the drama. We'd been there 3 days when my phone started buzzing repeatedly. 75 notifications. 100. I opened social media and my jaw dropped. Jenna had posted about the wedding, written an entire thread detailing what Patricia had done, including photos of my destroyed dress, the note, and pictures of me walking down the aisle in Patricia's vintage gown. The post had gone viral. Thousands of shares. Trending. People were calling it the most savage wedding revenge of the year. Comments flooded in praising me, calling the move iconic and genius. But there were also comments from people who knew Patricia, confirming she'd done similar things to others for years. Marcus, I said slowly. The wedding went viral. Jenna called immediately. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. I posted it to vent, and it just exploded. It's everywhere. BuzzFeed, Daily Mail, international news. We called Richard that evening. He looked exhausted on video chat. It's everywhere. Everyone we know has seen it. Patricia's devastated, humiliated. But she also called a therapist. She has her first appointment tomorrow. 6 months later, life had settled into a new normal. The viral post eventually faded, Patricia continued therapy religiously. She'd apologized to several of Marcus's ex-girlfriends. She'd stepped back from social obligations to focus on her mental health. We'd had 6 monthly dinners. Some were better than others. Once Patricia made a comment about my casual outfit, then immediately caught herself and apologized. She was trying. One Sunday morning, our doorbell rang. I opened it to find Patricia standing there alone, holding a garment bag, the one with her wedding dress. Patricia, we're not supposed to have dinner until next week. I know. I'm not here for dinner. I wanted to give you something. She held out the garment bag. I don't understand. Patricia's face showed vulnerability and sincerity. The dress. I want you to keep it. Officially. Not as evidence, but because it means something different now. That dress represented the happiest day of my life. My wedding to Richard, the beginning of my family. And I tried to take that same happiness away from you. Her voice stayed steady despite tears forming. But you wore it anyway. You took something I meant as a weapon and turned it into a symbol of your strength. Now, when I think of that dress, I don't just think of my wedding. I think of you. I think of the moment I realized I'd become someone I didn't want to be. I slowly took the garment bag, understanding the weight of the gesture. So I want you to have it. Alter it, preserve it, pass it down someday. Whatever feels right. But it's yours now. Truly yours. I looked down at the bag, then back at Patricia. For the first time since I'd met her, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't calculation or control or fear. I saw peace. Thank you, I said quietly. This means a lot. Patricia nodded, managing a small genuine smile. I should go. I'll see you next week for dinner. Next week, I confirmed. She paused at the door, turning back. You're good for him, you know. For Marcus. You make him happy in a way I never could because you let him be himself. And I'm grateful for that. Before I could respond, she was gone, walking down the hallway with lighter steps than I'd ever seen. Marcus appeared behind me, having heard everything. She's really trying. She really is, I agreed, turning in his arms. Are you okay with this? With her being part of our lives again? Marcus considered, then nodded. I am. Not the way it was before, that was toxic. But this? With boundaries and therapy and actual accountability? Yeah, I think I am. We hung the dress back in our closet, but this time it felt different. Not like evidence or a trophy, but like a bridge. A reminder of where we'd been and how far we'd come. 1 year after the wedding that broke the internet, we threw a small anniversary party in our backyard. My parents were there, my bridesmaids, Marcus's colleagues, and yes, Patricia and Richard. Patricia had continued therapy, rebuilt some friendships, and started volunteering at a women's shelter. She wasn't perfect. She still had moments where old instincts surfaced. But she caught them now. She apologized. She did the work. I watched her across the yard, chatting with my mother about a book they'd both read, both actually laughing. A year ago, I never would have believed this was possible. Marcus joined me with wine glasses. Your mom and my mom are getting along. That's either really good or slightly terrifying. I'm going really well, I said. A year ago, I was standing in a bridal suite with a destroyed dress and a decision to make. And I chose strength. I chose us. I chose to not let anyone steal my joy. Best decision you ever made, Marcus said, kissing me softly. Jenna climbed onto a chair, raising her glass. Speech time. 1 year ago, our girl faced the wedding disaster of the century. And instead of falling apart, she put on a vintage dress, walked down that aisle, and became an icon. She showed us what it means to set boundaries, to stand up for yourself, to not let anyone dim your light. So here's to 1 year of marriage, to strength to love, to the best revenge being living well, and to never letting anyone destroy your happiness. Cheers! Cheers! Echoed through the yard as everyone raised their glasses. Patricia approached Richard. Happy anniversary. Thank you for letting us be here, for giving me the chance to be part of your lives. You earned it, I said simply. By doing the work. By changing. Patricia pulled out a small wrapped box. I have something for you. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a charm, a pair of interlocking rings. I turned the charm over to reveal a tiny engraving. Strength and grace. That's what you showed me, Patricia said, voice thick with emotion. strength to stand up for yourself, grace to give me a second chance. I'll never forget that. I hugged her. It wasn't the hug of best friends, but it was real, honest, acknowledging pain and growth and the possibility of something better. As the sun set and string lights came on, I looked around at the people gathered in our backyard. Friends who'd supported me, family who'd stood by me, a husband who'd chosen me without hesitation, and yes, a mother-in-law who'd hurt me deeply but was genuinely trying to be better. It wasn't a perfect ending. Real life rarely is, but it was a good one. Patricia hadn't destroyed my wedding. She tested me, and I'd proven to her and to myself exactly how strong I was. And that dress, that beautiful vintage dress that was supposed to be a weapon, had become something else entirely. A symbol of resilience, of turning pain into power, of refusing to let anyone else write your story. So that's my story. How my mother-in-law destroyed my wedding dress, and I wore hers instead. It went viral, it changed my life, and it taught me something important. You can't control what other people do to you, only how you respond. And sometimes the best response isn't revenge or cruelty. It's strength, boundaries, and refusing to let someone else's actions define your happiness. Patricia and I will never have a perfect relationship, but we have an honest one now, built on accountability and growth instead of control and fear. And that dress, it's still hanging in my closet. I look at it sometimes and remember the worst morning of my life that turned into one of my proudest moments. If you're dealing with a difficult in-law or anyone trying to control your life, remember, you're stronger than you think. Set those boundaries, stand your ground, and never let anyone steal your joy.